In this edition of Back in History, we narrate to you the story of the man whom a section of the Nigerian media once described as the Maradona. His name, General Ibrahim Babangida. He has seen Nigeria in its numerous phases. He was born when Nigeria was under colonial rule. He entered the Nigerian army when the colonial people were still in control of Nigeria. He fought as a combatant at the war front during the Nigeria-Biafra War. He took active part in a number of coups and eventually became a beneficiary of one of the coups when he emerged as the military head of state of Nigeria and went on to govern the country in that capacity till 1993, a period of 8 years. He was applauded by many owing to his contributions to the development of Nigeria, and was also vilified by others for some of the events that took place in Nigeria during his tenure. Babangida is still alive, and today we bring to you his life and times, and we welcome you to this edition of Back in History. Ibrahim Babangida was born on 17th August 1941. He was born in Minna, in present-day Niger State. His father was Mohammed Babangida, while his mother was Aisha Babangida. His parents were adherents of the Islamic faith, and later Ibrahim was born into the faith of his parents and raised in it. Like every other Muslim child in the neighborhood, the young Ibrahim received early Islamic education before attending primary school. Here, children were schooled on how to recite Quranic verses and also taught on the basic principles of the Islamic faith, including the principles of good behavior as a child. When Ibrahim came of age for primary education, the parents took him to the famous Native Authority Primary School, Minna. From primary school, he moved to another famous college, the Government College, Bida. He was here from 1957 to 1962. Here he was in the same class with a number of Nigeria's future military and political leaders, such as Abdul Salami Abubakar, who later became Nigeria's military head of state, the man who succeeded General Sani Abacha following Abacha's unexpected demise. Babangida was also a classmate to Maman Vatsa, who later became a high-ranking military officer and minister of the Federal Capital Territory. He had other classmates like Igaba Duba, Gado Nasco, Sani Mohammed Sami, Sani Bello, and Mohammed Maguru, and many others. Done with his secondary education, Ibrahim Babangida gained admission into the Nigerian Military Training College in Kaduna and began his training on 10th December 1962. This was the beginning of his career in the military. At that time, what is today known as the Nigerian Army was known as the Royal Nigerian Army. The Nigerian Defense Academy was not created at the time. Nigerian citizens who desired to make a career in the army thus needed to commence their training at the Nigerian Military Training College, NMTC, Kaduna, and from there, they were sent abroad to continue their studies and training in world-acclaimed military academies. This is how Babangida was sent to the Indian Military Academy in 1963. There in India, Babangida went about his studies and training and received the needed recommendations from his instructors. On completion of his training, he was commissioned as second lieutenant for the Nigerian Army. Babangida then returned to Nigeria and was posted to various military formations in Nigeria. From 1964 to 1966, he was the commanding officer 1, Reconnaissance Squadron. Later in 1964, he was sent to the United Kingdom to attend the Young Officers course at the Royal Armoured Center, where he received further instruction on gunnery and the Saladin armored car. Done with his training, Babangida returned to Nigeria for further deployment by his employer, the Nigerian Army. He had the opportunity to travel the length and breadth of Nigeria in the course of the execution of the assignments given to him in the military. In 1967, Nigeria went into a bitter civil war with the now defunct Republic of Biafra, which had been declared as an independent state by Lieutenant Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, then governor of the Eastern region. Ojukwu declared the removal of Biafra from Nigeria, and for 1 full month following Ojukwu's declaration, Nigeria did not react to the declaration. Preparations were rather being made by Nigeria quietly to go to war against Biafra. Military officers on the Nigerian side were mobilized from all over the country to prepare for war against Biafra. Ibrahim Babangida was a young military officer at the time, and he was one of the persons mobilized to go to the battlefront. In July 1967, the first crack of the bullet was fired by Nigeria at a place called Gakem in Obudu in present-day Cross River State. With the firing of the bullets, the doors were open for a full-blown war between Nigeria and Biafra, and the war lasted for 3 years with several lives lost and properties destroyed. This is where Babangida would have lost his life. He was sent to fight in Biafra's heartland, Enugu. From Enugu, he led an operation to Umuahia. There in Umuahia, his battalion came under heavy shelling from Biafran forces, and Babangida was shot on the right side of his chest. He was immediately rushed back to Lagos for treatment. At that time, Lagos was Nigeria's federal capital. A bullet shrapnel had entered into his chest, and the removal of the shrapnel was said to be a risky venture which would have cost his life. Babangida was given the options of allowing the bullet shrapnel to be removed or allowing it to remain in his body. He was, however, advised that if he goes for the latter option, the shrapnel will have to remain in his body for the rest of his life. Babangida opted to live with the shrapnel. With quality treatment offered to him, Babangida recovered, and in December 1969, he briefly went back to the war front in Biafra, where he was given a battalion to command. When the war eventually ended in January 1970, Babangida went back to Lagos, where he continued to serve in the military in various capacities till his exit in 1993. Babangida was promoted twice and posted to the Nigerian Defense Academy, where he served as an instructor. That was soon after the war in 1970. From 1972 to 1974, he attended the Advanced Army Armor Training at the United States Army Armor School. On his return from the United States, he was deployed to the 4th Reconnaissance Regiment as commander of the Nigerian Army Armored Corps. In 1977, he attended the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Jaji. He is also an alumnus of the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru. Babangida received the best attainable military training at home and abroad throughout his service in the Nigerian Army. He was of the Armored Corps of the Nigerian Army and was highly respected among his peers and among other ranks in the armed forces. While in the military, Babangida occupied several positions. One of the positions occupied by him was the office of Chief of Army Staff in 1983, following the ascension to the office of President by Major General Muhammadu Buhari through a military coup. It is worthy of note that the coup that brought Buhari to power was planned and executed by Babangida and his colleagues, some of whom were Sani Abacha, Joshua Dogonyaro, David Mark, Sambo Dasuki, and others. Babangida served in the capacity of Chief of Army Staff till 1985, when he planned and executed another coup with his fellows to remove Major General Muhammadu Buhari from office. It was the same group that staged the coup that brought Muhammadu Buhari to power as military head of state that also staged the coup that removed him. When Buhari took over as head of state, he made critical appointments, including the appointment of military governors. But to the surprise of the persons that brought him to power, only one of them was appointed as governor. That was David Mark, who was appointed as the governor of Niger State. Only a few others were given appointments in the military. This did not go down well with the people who took the risk to execute a coup to bring Buhari to power. It has been reported that the plot to remove Buhari from power through another coup was hatched from the first year of his government. The coup would have been executed earlier, but the coup plotters were afraid of Buhari's deputy Tunde Idiabon, who was a no-nonsense officer. They had to wait for a time that Tunde Idiabon was going to be away from the country. Eventually, Tunde Idiabon left Nigeria to Mecca in the last week of August 1985, and the coup plotters seized the opportunity to strike and sack the regime from office. This is how Babangida emerged as the new military head of state of Nigeria. He took absolute charge of the country and made critical appointments of the persons that assisted him ascend the throne. He was loved by many across the country. Unlike other military leaders before him, Babangida appeared more friendly and more accessible. He came with smiles. He was polished and urbane. He looked smart at all times and spoke without threats. He allowed pressmen and women into his office on a number of times and spoke freely with them and also took questions from them. In these interviews, he reeled out his programs and also spoke about his achievements in office. He found his way into the hearts of many within a short period of time. He was committed to the demands of office, and those that were close to him have said that on many occasions Babangida worked till night time in Dodan barracks in his bid to clear his desk and keep the machinery of state in motion. He was a hard-working leader. But the honeymoon did not last forever. Babangida later received criticism on many fronts. He was criticized for holding on to power for too long. He was also criticized for his structural adjustment program, which was sold to him by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and which brought serious economic hardship on Nigerians. He was also criticized for human rights abuses such as detention of persons who were critical of the government. When the world-acclaimed journalist and editor-in-chief of Newswatch magazine, Delegiwa, was killed in a letter bomb, Babangida was also accused of complicity. Babangida denied the allegation and even added that Delegiwa was his friend of many years. Delegiwa had been to Babangida's office severally to interview him in the course of his work as a journalist. His death is still a mystery yet to be unraveled in Nigeria till date. The other point of heavy criticism against Babangida was when he annulled the June 12 election, of which MKO Abiola was the presumed winner in 1993. The election was annulled, and MKO Abiola was later arrested by Sani Abacha and locked up in prison. Abiola eventually died in prison. The annulment thus sticks out as a sore thumb and a dent on Babangida's regime. Outside the criticism, Ibrahim Babangida remained still dead one of the most outstanding leaders in Nigeria's history. He brought so much development to Nigeria. He first created two states in 1987, namely Akwa Ibom and Katsina states. He is also the person that created Yobe State, Taraba State, Jigawa State, Kebbi State, Enugu, Edo, Delta, and Osun states. It was also Babangida that created the Federal Road Safety Corps and made Professor Wole Soyinka as its first Corps Marshal. Babangida also created the State Security Service, also known as the DSS. He also created the National Intelligence Agency, NIA, and also created the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. Babangida was the one who awarded the contract for the construction of the Third Mainland Bridge, which remains still today a significant piece of architecture in Lagos. Babangida also saw to the construction and completion of the following projects: the Toja Bridge in Kebbi, the Jibia Water Treatment Plant, the Chalawa Kenga Dam in Kano, and the Kano Abuja Dual Carriageway, and the Kano Dam. It was Ibrahim Babangida, while in office, that constructed the ECOWAS Headquarters Secretariat in Abuja. He also constructed a popular international conference center in Abuja. He built federal courts buildings across Nigeria and also constructed the National Assembly, which remains an imposing edifice till today. He constructed military barracks in Abuja and in many other parts of the Federation of Nigeria. He built the Nigerian Army Amphibious School, Calabar, and also built the Army School of Armor in Bauchi State. He built federal housing estates across the country and also built federal secretariats, though Abacha also added up significantly during his tenure. Nigerian dockyard Snake Island was constructed by him. He also built the Nigerian Navy dockyard. It was during his tenure that the aluminum smelter company in Ikorobasi, Akwa Ibom State was built to completion. He engaged the services of German and American aluminum expert companies in the construction of the plant. The plant went into the production of aluminum, and for the first time in history, Nigeria joined the League of Aluminum Producing Countries in the world. It was also in his time that Ajaokuta Steel Mill was built. The imposing edifice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, located at the Three Arms Zone, was built by Babangida. Babangida is the architect of the Three Arms Zone and all that is located thereat. It was also Babangida who saw to the construction of the Abuja International Airport Phase 1 and 2 to accommodate the air traffic needs of the new Federal Capital Territory. The headquarters of the Federal Mortgage Bank Lagos was built by him. He also built Federal Mortgage Bank branches in most states of the Federation. He constructed the imposing edifice of the headquarters of the Central Bank of Nigeria in Abuja. He built the Security and Minting headquarters in Abuja. He constructed hospitals in many parts of the country and provided central water supplies in many locations. He built several bridges across the country. He also constructed a number of educational institutions. Aso Rock Villa, Nigeria's seat of power, was also built by him in Abuja, Nigeria. The idea of the construction of a new Federal Capital Territory for Nigeria in Abuja, with intent to relocate the capital from Lagos, was first conceived by General Murtala Mohammed, but Murtala was assassinated barely 200 days into his administration as head of state of Nigeria. He thus was not alive to realize his dream of a new federal capital city, but the roadmap had been drawn and the location had been mapped out in the present-day Abuja. It took successive administrations to develop the new capital city, but one leader who stood out remarkably in his contribution to the development of Abuja was General Ibrahim Babangida. He turned Abuja to a huge construction site. There were earth-moving equipment everywhere in Abuja. Buildings and roads were constructed day and night, and in no time Abuja became a city to marvel. Babangida engaged the services of major construction companies, the principal of which was Julius Berger. Today, Abuja is Nigeria's best planned city. For Babangida, what was worth doing was worth doing well. There was no room for compromise in standards. It was during his time also that the Jabi district and the central area phase 1 and 2 were completed. It was also during his time that Asokoro and Asokoro Southwest Extension 1 and 2 were completed. He had zero tolerance to abandonment of contracts. Every contract awarded by his administration was awarded with a caveat that the contract must be completed. Babangida, as military head of state of Nigeria, was indeed a leader with an avowed determination to develop and transform Nigeria. He received many accolades for infrastructural development even from his critics. In the heat of the annulment of the June 12, 1993 election, Babangida was criticized at home and abroad. The heat from the annulment soon became too much for him. There were protests everywhere, and no one knew what was going to happen next in Nigeria. The clouds were no more bright. There was palpable fear and apprehension. Many Nigerians agitated that the result of the election should be duly announced and that the reins of power should be handed over to its winner, MKO Abiola. Babangida stuck to his gun and maintained that the election, having been annulled, cannot be restored. His position did not go down well with many citizens and with a section of the international community. With the palpable tension in the country persisting and the president saying that things were falling apart and that the center might not hold much further, Babangida took a decision and made it public that he is, in his exact words, stepping aside from office. He kept to his words and stepped aside. Before stepping aside, he handed over power to Ernest Shenekon, a lawyer and boardroom guru, to serve as interim president of Nigeria. This nomenclature was in itself strange and never before heard of in Nigeria and in the whole of Africa. But it was an ingenious invention by President Ibrahim Babangida, whom a section of the media had always described as the Maradona, owing to his ability to wriggle out of extremely challenging and novel situations. Babangida pressed further, signed a decree into law, allowing Shenekon as interim president of Nigeria and handed over the reins of power to him. Babangida then left Aso Rock Villa and retired to his palatial mansion in Minna, Niger State, Nigeria. This was on 26 August 1993. This journey marked the end of the 8-year-long stay in office of General Ibrahim Babangida as the military head of state of Nigeria. Like every other creation, Babangida continues to age every day. At the time of the making of this video, he is 83 years old. He continues to receive several very important persons who pay him visits from time to time in his residence in Minna. He now stays and moves around in a wheelchair owing to ailments that are obviously being taken care of. Till death, Babangida still grants interviews to media houses and speaks regularly on the state of the Nigerian nation. Indeed, the contemporary history of Nigeria will be incomplete without the mention of the man, Ibrahim Babangida. He served Nigeria as a combatant in the field during the Nigeria-Biafra War and also served Nigeria in other military positions and ended his career as military head of state of Nigeria. He is loved by many owing to his strides in office and also hated by many owing to the controversies that trailed his administration. Whatever the divide may be, Babangida remains a recurring decimal in the history and politics of Nigeria till today. Thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe or follow the page for regular notification on every new video. I am your friend and host Ekemini Udim, wishing you the best of time as you continue to accompany me through the corridors of history in our mission for the documentation of the history of Africa.